All right. I would like to start by thanking you all for coming. Thanking you very, very, very much for this series of Tuskegee University Interdisciplinary Seminar Series. This seminar series brings together a number of scholars from Tuskegee and those outside of Tuskegee to educate us on concerns or things that we, not only as an institution, but as a people, Black people, those on the continent, those in the diaspora, we need to know to move ahead. I would also like to draw attention that this series is not a one-man show. There is a whole panel of scholars behind this. And as you would be listening, I would like to give a shout out to the sponsors of the Tuskegee University Disciplinary Seminar Series, which include Tuskegee University, the Tuskegee University College of Agriculture, Environmental and Nutritional Science, Tuskegee University College of Arts and Agriculture and Sciences, and you have also the Mellon Foundation and the National Park Services. They are all sponsored to this program. And I am just happy to introduce Ms. McLaughlin, who would be introducing us to our speaker. And Ms. McLaughlin, first of all, before I introduce Ms. McLaughlin, I want to let know that this seminar series is not only for professors, it also encourages even research, undergraduate research. If an undergraduate research student has some important findings they want to share, or a group of them, they are welcome to submit their proposal, which will be considered, and we can have them present. Before COVID, we didn't have the luxury of Zooming in. I either did this in the biotics auditorium or in the auditorium at Henderson or another bigger space within the university it allowed. So Ms. McLaughlin is one of graduating seniors. When I say one of our graduating seniors, she's a graduating senior in the College of Arts and Science, and she majors in biology. She was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, and she actually intends to go back home to become a real estate developer. So I will the floor to Ms. McLaughlin to introduce our speaker, Dr. Abdul Salau, who is professor in the history department, who will be talking about, Africa as the cradle of writing. Over to you, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Abdul Salau was born in Nigeria in a family of 10 boys and 10 girls. He attended secondary school in Nigeria as well. He attended University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee initially to study architecture, but changed his major to economics. He later received his bachelor's degree in economics from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. After graduating, he went to the University of Hawaii, Manoa, to complete his master's in urban and regional planning. While he was in Hawaii, he worked as a planning intern with the City and County of Honolulu Department of Transportation Rapid Transit Section. Dr. Salau's efforts contributed to the development of mass transit plan, which helped the city and county County of Honolulu to develop a light rail system for the city. Dr. Salau's specific responsibility in the planning was to determine the environmental and economic impacts of train stations. After working with the City and County of Honolulu Department of Transportation, he moved to Office of State Planning, which was under the Governor's Office. He assigned to work with Hawaii State Office of Coastal Zone Management. Dr. Salau's responsibility at this position was to develop policy papers dealing with emerging and prevailing issues. Some of the issues that developed policy papers on are Sagittara fish poisoning. Dr. Salau also wrote policy papers dealing with El Nino and La Nina and the effects of global warming on Hawaii state coastal resources. Dr. Salau worked as an environmental planner with Hawaii Office of Environmental Quality Control, the agency responsible for monitoring the managing developmental issues for the state. Hawaii Office of Environmental Quality Control is responsible for issuing and approving environmental assessments and environmental impacts states for developmental projects involving public and private sectors. After his time working as an urban planner, he went back to school to complete his doctorate at Temple University. After completing his doctorate degree, he had teaching position at Delaware State, Michigan State University, and Quara State University. As coordinator of African languages at Michigan State University, he was on the team responsible for writing Title VI grant application. Dr. Salau's specific responsibility was writing the language report portion of the grant application, which won Michigan State African Studies Center, a Department of Education Title VI grant on August 10, 2010. Michigan State University received over $2 million to support African language education and area studies. Dr. Salau was an Adams Teaching Fellow at Michigan State University, East Lansing, Michigan. Dr. Salau was also a Frederick Douglass Teaching Fellow at Clarion University, Clarion, Pennsylvania. Dr. Salau has academic interests about Africa and world history and the relationship of West Africans and ancient Egyptians. His lecture today deals with Africa, the cradle of writing.
Welcome, Dr. Salau.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me, Professor Indy and Ms. McLaughlin. Thank you for your wonderful introduction. I'd like to preface my remarks by quoting Hegel, because when we talk about Africa, this is what he said about Africa. And this is what is really, this is the danger of this single story. He said, Hegel, he never visited Africa. He was not a historian, nor did he, but this is what he has to say. He said, this is the land where men are children, a land lying beyond the daylight of self-consciousness, history. Enveloped in the black color of the night. At this point, let's forget about Africa, not to mention it again. Africa is no historical part of the world. Africa is no historical part of the world. It has no moment of development to exhibit. Historical moment in it, that is the northern part, belong to the Asiatic or European world. Egypt does not belong to the African spirit. What we properly understand by Africa is the unhistoric, underdeveloped spirit, still on the threshold of world history. If I'm successful tonight, Hegel is going to be rolling in his grave, just upset. So without further ado, I'm going to just I'll share my screen with you.
Yeah.
my PowerPoint. Wait. Okay, let me share. So, okay, I got it. Hold on, I have to move it up. Okay. So that's it, you have it. Is Africa the cradle of writing? And that's my name, Abdul Salam. Hegel was saying the Nile Valley was populated from blacks from the origin of humanity up to the appearance of other races in 20,000 to 15,000 years ago. 1,300 years before the Common Era was the period of great inventions by the peoples of the sea. This was the Dynasty 19. So these are the table of races, the way the ancient Egyptians saw them. So at the first is the Egyptian himself. That's the way he represented himself as Egyptian proper. The ancient Egyptian recognized the Semitic people, and these are the blacks from other parts of Africa, and these in the Indo-European, the one we call the white man today. So the Egyptian were aware of all the people that lived in ancient Egypt and lived in other parts of the world. So let's continue. These table of races is represented in the Ramses, in the tomb of Ramses II, and it shows that the ancient Egyptians perceived themselves as black. And here, the ruins of all the 10 years studies of ideologies demonstrate that ancient Egyptians did not establish any ethnic difference between themselves and other Africans. They belong in the same ethnic and cultural universe. So let's continue. Most scholars of African history, culture, and civilization and history are now aware of the vast expanse of African scripts and their relationship to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and other wall scripts. What does that mean? Most of us, when we went to school, when I went to school and studied architecture, we were studying ancient Egypt. But at the time, I didn't know what was going on because they made me believe that it was the European civilization. But there was a man that was finished, his name is David Stokes. He was completing his master's in architecture. And every day he would just be raising his hand. He's an African-American brother. Ancient Egyptians were black. Ancient Egyptians were black. And I would say, what's wrong with the brother, you know? What's this big deal about ancient Egyptians being black? So I didn't know what to do about, think about that. And I didn't know that I would be, my future would be in this stuff. So before this time, most of they always believe the oldest script in the world is the Sumerian cuneiform. And they never gave us any proof that shows that the cuneiform was older than all the other scripts in the world, but it's just by inspiration. So we just accepted it as such. But there's been a recent discovery in ancient Egyptian archaeology that confirmed the origin of writing is in Egypt in Northeast Africa, northeastern part of Africa. So let's continue. The study of writing provides us with a rich domain of cultural history and ideas. It interweaves with the discipline of philosophy, religion, linguistics, and humanistic inquiry. In Plato's Phaedrus, Socrates reminds the Greek collective that tagrammata, that is letters, the writings were first invented in Kemet, that is ancient Egypt. We'll continue again. So there's African scripts. How many of, can I see a show of hand, anybody that knows that Africans have their own writing system?
Use the raise hand function.
Have you ever had that Africans have their own writing system? Okay.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, so if you did, can you tell me what the name of the writing system is? And how was the relationship to ancient Egyptian?
You could text it to the chat.
You can text it to the chat. And Dr. Indy or Ms. McLaughlin may be able to tell us. Nobody? So no response. The issue, the most elementary thing that we know is that the whole world was populated from Africa. Even if they're talking about the Sumerian script, the first person to live in Mesopotamia they were blacks. It was later that the other people came. So, so black people are native to all the continents of the world. If the Africans have not gone to the other parts of the world, the places will have been desert. And some of the things that we're even finding out right now is that Ramses III is the father of ancient America. You know, the writing that they have here, the pyramids, the ancient Egyptians, they were not only here, they were all over the world. So let's continue.
Before you continue, Mr. Daniel and says the writing system in Africa was the cuneiform.
Oh no, the writing system in Africa was not good.
All right, so inform them.
Yeah, he's from Mesopotamia and he's in the area of a place they call modern Iraq. And is the Akkad, the Sumerians, and then the historical figure is the Akkad of Sargon, Sargon of Akkad. You know. So, but the Indo-Europeans later came in there, but the native people were initially blacks.
All right, and Mr. Kasim Eli says Arabic.
Yeah, we'll see. The Arabic script also is derived from the ancient. Is not the original Arabians were Africans, of course. Yeah, that may be. We can take that, but I don't like struggling with the Arab script because there's other people now that have claimed it, but.
Right. We have the Bamoun script from Cameroon.
Yeah, Bamoun script, correct. And Bamoun script and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics is the same.
All right.
And I'm going to show you right now, I'm getting ready to demonstrate to you the African script. So not only are Africans related to ancient Egyptian, their script is also related to ancient Egyptian. So let's continue. I start with my own country first, Nigeria. This is the Nsibidi. On the left, you have the ancient Egyptian. On the right, you have the Nsibidi. This is the writing system that you find in Nigeria. And that's the ancient Egyptian that is on the right, left, on the right. Are these related, Ms. McLaughlin?
You're asking?
I didn't hear you.
What do you think about these two scripts? Are they related? Do they look the same?
Do they look alike?
Yes.
Anybody in attendance could answer.
Is there anybody that disagrees? Okay, so is affirmative. So we'll continue. Now, this is the Mende script. And this script is related to the Dravidian script of Brahm. This Mende is related to the Dravidian script. Unfortunately, I didn't want to bring too many slides, but look at the Mende script is on the right and look at the left. Do they look the same?
Yes, they look the same.
Okay. The Egyptian is on the right side, and you see the man raising his hand and all this other stuff, doing all kind of things. Okay, and you see the symbol for beauty, you know, Nefer, right there. So now let's go to this is Vi. You find Vi is located in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And these are African people. They're still, in fact, Associate Dean is Vi, Professor Jimé. How many of you know him? You
could use your raise hand function, that will be fine.
Yeah, Professor Jimé, this is the script that is in his ethnic group, Vi of Liberia. So you see the Egyptian, are this script the same script? Are they the same? Our moderator, Ms. McLaughlin.
Well,
Well, they look,
asking everybody in the attendance if
they look similar.
yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
look. Okay, thank you, ma'am. And now, so let's continue. So that's the vice script. So let's go to the next one. This Bamun. Look at the ancient Egyptian on the left, and the Bamun is on the right. You see, do they look the same, Ms. Farah?
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they do.
So,
Okay, I'm making a case. This is not my big point. I'm just trying to make a point. And as I go further, you're going to really see the revelation. So let's continue. When I was studying with Professor Benga, this is what I was told, that the West only borrowed this alphabet from Africa, from ancient Egypt. You see the progression of the scripts? From Egyptian, you have the Latin script. That's what you use in writing your name, or this is the alphabet we use in writing our name. The people that accuse us of not having any script, they have not a single script. The Germans don't have a script. The English, the Irish, the people of Western Europe don't have a single script. It's from Egyptian, you have the cowhead, then you have the Proto-Sinaitic. That's the Proto-Sinaitic. That's where the classical Chinese script came from. And then the Phoenician, early Greek, and then you have Latin. That's the progression. This is what I was told by my teacher. So I didn't have any way to know better. So I just believed what he told me and did the evidence he gave me, Professor Benga. And I started doing my own research at the University of Indiana University. As I opened one book, guess what happened? I saw the whole alphabet of the Latin alphabet came from ancient Egypt. So that's what I'm going to show to you right now. Are you guys ready?
yeah.
The last time I gave this lecture in Michigan State, all the European people of European descent walked out and the Africans were mesmerized. They said, "You mean to tell us we have scripts?" I said, "You have scripts." So now look at it. Look at the Latin script on your right side. And look at the ancient Egyptian. These all the alphabet indeed that we're using. Everything that I use in writing my name. This is the evolution of the ancient Egyptian writing and how it influenced the whole world. So you have Sinaitic, that's the one that I told you is the classical Chinese. How did I know that? Can someone ask me that question? I was
Take
just
the question, answer it for us.
I was excited, and I was showing a Chinese student, PhD student doing a PhD research. I said, the largest script came from Africa. The largest script came from Africa. She looked at the chart. She said, this is classical Chinese. And that only makes sense because the first, remember we said the most elementary thing that we know is that humanity was born in Africa, and is that humanity that populated the rest of the world. I remember I went to school in Hawaii, and one time in my dining hall in Hali, Manoa, there was a bunch of Chinese guys eating in the dining room. And the minute they saw me, they all busted out laughing. I said, what's funny? I'm the first Chinese. Then they kept quiet. I said, you don't believe? I'm going to go get dinner. I showed them. I said, look at this. Your archaeologists in China are saying that I'm the first one to live in China. So what's funny? So then they all kept quiet. It wasn't funny anymore. So this is the one that I found, and I showed you the one that my teacher showed. So now see the rest of the alphabet and the variations of it. So the Latin script that we use is from Africa by way of ancient Egypt. So that's another thing. So now let's continue. I told you initially that there was, they said the Sumerian script was the oldest. In fact, we know some older scripts. In the Sahara, there's the oldest script. And even Nubia also have like some older script that was found by some ancient Egyptian archaeologists. But as far as Egypt, there's no any other script in the world that's older than 300 before the Common Era or 3400 before the Common Era. So we know now that based on the research that was done by Dr. Gunther Dreyer, that the oldest script was found in the pre-dynastic by the pre-dynastic ruler Scorpion I tomb. And it was found by the archaeological team, German archaeological team in Cairo. So now let's continue. Now, since we know now, this is now the effect that this African script has had on the world. So the ancient Egyptian script was born in Egypt, and it went through different evolution. So it went from erratic to demotic to Saudi Arabian, South Arabian script, and then it became Ethiopic, and you have Tamlud and the rest, and then Amharic. So you can see right there, from there, it moved to the left, you see the black arrow, and right there you have the Biblos, hieroglyphics, 1,100 to, I cannot read that very well, this. So that's the Biblio, and then the Proto-Sinaitic, that's the one that I told you is the classical Chinese script. The classical Chinese script. And that became Canaanite, and it evolved into Phoenician. The Canaanite linear alphabet became Phoenician and Archaic Greek, and then all the Canaanite script. The people that lived in Canaan were blacks, you know, thanks to the Bible and all the sources where we got it. So the Phoenicians, Greek, Etruscans, Latin, Gothic, modern Europeans, this is how they got all there. And Cyrillic alphabet, that's the Russian. So, and then from Phoenician, you also got Aramaic, you have Syriac, you have Nabatean, Jewish, and modern Hebrew, and you have Armenian, and then the Indian script, 7th century. So the one, all writings in the world came from Africa. It's just, think about it this way, it's nothing controversial. In modern times, where was computer invented in modern times, Ms. Farah?
In modern times, I'm not sure. Could you inform me?
Our,
United States, I think. United States.
No, if we're talking about computing, let's stay on the African continent, because we can talk rhythm table, we can talk of the slide rule, which are all computing facilities. We can stick with Africa.
Oh, okay. Then I will retrace then, since also even the idea of math and all this other stuff, the algebra, you have to know how to calculate first before you can compute. So we have the Shango bone in Congo and all other archaeological finds. So, but in terms of modern machines, large scale, that's what I'm talking about, like personal computers, mainframes, and all this other stuff. So like when somebody invents something, you don't reinvent the same thing, you just copy. You just use whatever someone has invented. So in the ancient times, Africans were the one that invented writing. Other people adapted that writing and they developed their own from it. So when I'm talking about Chinese people script coming from Africa, I'm talking about the classical Chinese script, not the modern one. The modern one was developed by them, but they could not have had the modern one without the classical. So let's continue. You see these Indus valleys in the ancient time, the two civilizations, there's two places where the Africans live, in India, and also those are, I mean, there's other centers also. There's Iran, you have Ilam, and also in Greece, Anatolia. So you see the Manding script that I showed you earlier that was called Mande, and look at the Indus Valley script. These are the Dravidians. Do they look the same? Take a look.
Sure, they look the same.
Yeah. So I rest my case. So that's the influence of African writing in the world. But you know the irony? Africa invented scripts, but we don't even have any, we're not using any of it, except maybe for Amharic and maybe Arabic. So let me go to my next slide. Thank you. This is a statement that shows that in the world, there's also two types of people. People of goodwill and people of bad will. Ms. Farah, can you just read this for us so that everybody will know what you get? I know they can see it, but we want to hear your beautiful voice. Say it.
There is a people now forgotten, discovered while others were yet barbarians, the elements of the arts and sciences, a race of men now rejected from society for their black, sable skin and frizzled hair, founded on the study of the laws of nature, those civil and religious systems which still govern the universe. Count Volney.
Yeah,
From the book Ruins of the Empire, 1890.
thank you very much. This is what the Frenchman that was on the Napoleon expedition in Egypt, when he saw all the ruins and everything, and he saw the faces of all the people that he discovered there, this is what he had to say. So now let's go to the final slide. Thank you. How many of you feel like you've been inspired by this? Now you have questions. Thank you.
You can stop your screen share. Thank you very much, Dr. Salau. Before we take questions, I think I just would like to recognize Dr. Watt Hayes. Dr. Watt Hayes, who is a member of the University Interdisciplinary Series. Welcome, and the floor is open for questions from anybody in attendance who might have one. Questions, if you want to type your questions, that's fine. So we have very informative from Jada, we have from Dr. Isunga, great presentation. Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go right ahead.
Dr. Salau, thank you so very much for this presentation. I knew Africa only because the Bamoun have their own writing, and yes, I also know Africa is the cradle of humanity, but I didn't know about writing. So my question to you is, what happened for African people to totally forget these scripts that they invented?
Yeah. You know, every society socialize their young, and when you lose power, and then you lose your knowledge base, because right now we're studying in the West, all of us, most of I have more problems with Africans than I do from non-Africans, because the Africans we've been totally brainwashed, or what is it? Brainwash is not the word. One of my students can help me. Jane Elliott said, indoctrinate, we're being indoctrinated. Indoctrination, we're victim of indoctrination. And Kataji Watson also talked about it in the miseducation of the Negro. The issue is that being African, we're not only African, we're world people. We're native to the world. When I was doing my graduate studies in the University of Hawaii, I met a Zahile there. I was living in Hawaii, but it didn't occur to me that I was living in a Black country, because that's how totally brainwashed I was. All the other islands have Black people, except the ones that was colonized. And then they gave all these islands different names. So, and it's all Black people that they're dividing among themselves. So one is Polynesian, one is Micronesian, one is Melanesian. These are all Black people. But the Western anthropologists, just like they named the native people of the Americas, they named them Indians. Now we're finding out that Africans were here first, you know, and they were here also with other people that came from other parts of Asia. So The important thing is that we have to, as scholars and as teachers, we have to challenge ourselves and try to know and try to share information with each other. All of these things are right there inside the book. But you know what they say, if you don't want Black people to know something, put it in a book. So if we spend a lot of time in the library investigating some of these things, then we'll be able to know about it. So this is the issue. I hope I answer your question, Professor.
Yes, sir, you did. Thank you.
Any other question? Well, so Dr. Salau, let me ask you this question, because I know on this call, we have a good number of students, as well as your question answered what we scholars can do. How would you encourage our young students on the call to make sure that they can take the relay button stick, all right, to continue to put out the narrative of our accomplishments to the world? Because the purpose of this is to make sure, all right, is to make sure that our narrative is not buried. I remember you started by talking of the problem with the single narrative. So how do we get this polyphonous voice in the narrative?
I think by having forums like this and always constantly talking about it so that it becomes commonplace. And, you know, we just have to make it part of our own intellectual makeup. That's the only way.
All right. Thank you for that answer. I have another question from one of our students here, Miss Stephanie Long, and she has this question for you. The Egyptian hieroglyphics are in textbooks. Why aren't they recognized the way you presented them? What is the issue that they are found in textbooks, but nobody is explaining what you just explained?
Because in the 1900s, at the time that they discovered ancient Egypt, Africa was still has just been colonized by the different powers in the West. So it's very difficult for someone that has enslaved you to now say that you are the one that created my civilization. So the West don't want to acknowledge this, but they've done all kind of things to deny Tutankhamun. Pharaoh is Greek, is not Egyptian. The word for ancient Egyptian Pharaoh is Ba'a in their own language. It means great house. And the White House is the house where the Pharaoh lived in. So they even copied that. So don't think because they call it the White House is for white people. Because the founders of the modern United States, they were mostly Mason, and they're people that rely on old knowledge. So they knew about all of these things. And so they named their institution to reflect older civilization. So the issue is that there's a conspiracy by Egyptologists to deny that Egypt is in Africa. So they have, you'll hear Africa north, south of the Sahara. So not Middle East, North Africa and Middle East, and Near East, but there's no Near West. So it's all euphemism to try to deny that Egypt is in Africa. So this is the responsibility that you're going to have. But the biggest one is not even this script. the bigger issue that we're dealing with is there's a fake language family that's called the Afroasiatic family. And that's going to be my next presentation. If the committee would be willing to let me show this bogus family, you know, a family that don't that have different name for kinship terms. There's no unity in terms of the terms. So, but the West imposed this on Africa. Pharaoh is not Egyptian, it's Pa'ah. The word Pharaoh is Greek. And the ancient Egyptian called the leaders Pa'ah, great house. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you did. And you even addressed the comment Khalid Al-Haji posted that Pharaoh is Egyptian. And you addressed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So any other question? Dr. Fishkin says, well done and thank you. And
yeah,
is
nobody from my class is answering any question. Jaden Henry, Jaden Johnson, what do you guys think? They're shy.
All right, no, that's okay. So I would like to thank all of you for coming and call on you to give Dr. Salah a big round of applause. You can use the applause sign, or you can just turn on your camera and give him a big, big, big round of applause. Okay. And on this note, Dr. Salah, I would say thank you. And I'm sure the committee is taking you up on your next challenge to talk about the language families in Africa. So you have a blessed and wonderful one. And we look forward to the next speaker session of the seminar series. You have a blessed and wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.